By the time I understood why that boy only smiled when my bus pulled up, the school had already taken me off the route. His name was Julian Vale, 8 years old, son of a woman whose name was printed on buildings, hospital wings, and magazine covers. Folks said the boy barely spoke, barely reacted, barely looked at anyone for more than a second. But every morning at 7:18, when my old yellow bus sighed at the curb and the air brakes hissed like steam under the cold, Julian looked up. Then he smiled. Not big, not for show. Just enough for me to see it in the side mirror while I reached for my coffee and checked the folded paper ticket he always left behind. A tiny pencil smiley face sat in the corner. I thought it was just a child's habit. I was wrong. But to understand why this mattered, you need to know who I was before that morning. My name is Andre Whitaker, and I drove Route 17 for 12 years. Most people think driving a school bus is just sitting behind a wheel, opening doors, closing doors, watching kids climb on and off. Those people have never handled 42 children before sunrise while one is crying over a missing glove. 2 are arguing over a seat, and a third is trying to sneak a frog inside a lunchbox. You learn things. You learn which kid needs a joke, which one needs quiet, which one has not eaten breakfast, and which parent waves only when someone is watching. My son Micah was 9 then. He had this chipped model bus he kept on the kitchen table. One back wheel missing because our neighbor's little terrier got hold of it. Every night, he lined up his toy buses by route number before bed. If I moved one, he noticed. "Dad," he said one night, squinting at the broken wheel, "you think buses get tired?" I looked down at my hands. Soap never got all the black from the lines around my knuckles. My right thumb had a pale scar from a steering column latch that snapped back in winter. My palms had gone hard where the wheel sat every morning. "Buses don't get tired," I told him. "Drivers do." He laughed like that was the funniest thing I had said all week. After his mother passed, laughter in our apartment became something I tried not to scare away. I paid bills late, packed lunches early, and kept one rule in my head: don't step too far into rich people's lives. Do the job. Be kind. Keep moving. That rule had protected me more than once. It also made me miss things. The first morning Julian Vale rode my bus. He did not look at me. His security man handed me a folder like I was signing for a package, not taking responsibility for a child. Julian climbed aboard with a backpack too big for his shoulders and sat in the third seat on the right. At the end of the ride, when every other kid ran toward the school doors, Julian stayed behind for 3 seconds. Then he placed a folded ticket on the edge of the step. No words. Just the ticket. I almost called after him. Instead, I picked it up, slipped it into the metal clip above my visor, and told myself not to make it mean anything. The next morning, he left another one. And the morning after that. By the end of the week, I had 7 folded tickets above my head, all marked in pencil with one tiny smile. I thought I was being careful by staying quiet. I did not understand yet that silence can feel different to a child waiting for you to notice. Julian's mother was Celeste Vale, CEO of Vale Meridian Holdings. I knew her name before I ever saw her face. Everybody in Charlotte did. Her company owned office towers downtown, sponsored museum galas, and had its name on the children's hospital wing where Micah once got stitches after falling off a bike he swore was barely moving. The first time Celeste came to school pickup herself, the whole sidewalk changed. Black SUV at the curb, tinted windows, 2 security men stepping out before the engine shut off. A woman in a cream coat walked behind them, phone in one hand, sunglasses in the other, her hair pinned so neat the wind seemed to leave it alone. She did not look cruel. That mattered. Cruel people are easy to understand. Busy people with power can hurt you while checking tomorrow's schedule. Julian stood beside the school counselor with both hands gripping his backpack straps. Children moved around him like water around a stone. His eyes stayed low until my bus rolled forward and the air brakes sighed. Then his face changed. Celeste saw it. For half a second, she stopped reading whatever was on her phone. Her mouth parted like she had almost asked a question. Then one of the security men touched her elbow and pointed toward the SUV. The man's name was Grant Barlow. I learned that later. That afternoon, Grant stepped onto my bus without asking. "You're the driver," he said. I was sitting there with my route sheet on my knee, checking names against stops. "I'm Andre Whitaker." He glanced at the sheet, then at my jacket, then passed me toward the seats like my name had not made it all the way to him. "Mrs. Vale prefers limited direct interaction with Julian. He has a documented care plan. That plan includes getting him to school safe." His eyes came back to me. "It includes appropriate boundaries." He was not entirely wrong. A child like Julian needed consistency. Adults should not treat access like affection. I understood that. I had seen lonely kids attach themselves to anyone who remembered their birthday. But the way Grant said boundaries made me feel like I was something they had to keep from spreading. I rested my thumb against the root clipboard. The joint started its old ache. I did not move it. "Understood," I said. Grant gave one short nod and stepped down. Through the windshield, I saw Celeste watching from beside the SUV. Not me, exactly. Julian. Then the bus. Then Julian again. For the first time, I wondered whether she had ever seen what happened at 7:18 every morning. Behind me, clipped above the visor, the folded tickets shifted in the heat blowing from the dash. One of them slipped loose and landed near my boot. A tiny pencil smile looked up from the floor like it had been waiting on somebody braver than me. After Grant Barlow stepped off my bus, I started watching my own hands more than the road. That sounds strange, but drivers know what I mean. Your hands tell on you before your mouth does. Mine held the wheel too tight at every stop after Vale Academy. My right shoulder pinched each time I reached for the door lever. I kept checking the mirror even when nobody was behind me. The next morning, Julian climbed on at the same time as always. 7:18. His shoes were polished black. His backpack strap had been adjusted too high on one side. He walked past the first 2 rows and sat third seat on the right. Window side, knees together, hands flat on top of his bag. "Morning, Julian," I said. He did not answer, but his left thumb tapped twice against the backpack zipper. I noticed because I had spent years noticing things children never announced. "The ride went the way it always did. Stop at Maple Bend. 2 sisters arguing over a purple water bottle. Stop at Ashford Court. Little Kenny asking if worms had bones. Stop at Vale Academy. Doors open. Children unload." Julian waited. Then he set the folded ticket on the step. This time I looked before putting it away. Same crease. Same small pencil smile in the upper right corner. But below it, almost hidden by the fold, there was a tiny line. Like someone had started to write something and stopped. I should have asked him then. Instead, I slipped it above my visor with the others. That was my flaw working in real time. I called it respect. I called it staying in my lane. Some days, fear wears a clean shirt and calls itself professionalism. Later that afternoon, I checked the morning log. Every child had a seat number assigned for emergency tracking. Julian said 3rd row, right side. But on my route sheet, somebody had written beside his name, "Limit personal contact." No signature? No date. That bothered me. Policies have names attached. Care plans have review stamps. A note like that was not a plan. It was a warning dressed up as one. When I got home, Micah was on the floor lining up his toy buses. Route 17 came first. Always. "You look mad," he said. "I'm not mad. You got your bus face." "What's my bus face?" He pushed the chipped model forward until its missing wheel bumped my shoe. "The one where you see something wrong but pretend you don't?" I wanted to laugh. I almost did. Instead, I looked at that little broken bus and thought about the folded tickets over my visor. The next morning, when Julian left his ticket, there was no smile on it. Just one word, pressed so hard the pencil tore the paper. "Stay!" I kept that ticket in my shirt pocket for the rest of the day. Stay. One word from a boy who had never spoken to me. Written so hard the pencil point had cut through the paper. I felt it each time I moved, the folded edge pressing against my chest like a question I had no clean answer for. That afternoon, after my last route, I sat alone on the bus with the engine off. A school bus sounds different after children leave it. The seats creak from heat. The mirrors tick softly. Somewhere under the dash, old plastic settles like it is tired of holding itself together. I took down every ticket Julian had left. There were 43 of them. Same fold, same corner, same pencil smile. At first, I thought he had just been marking the ride. A child's private game. But when I laid them across the driver's seat in order, the pattern showed itself. On Mondays, the smile was high in the corner. On Tuesdays, lower. Wednesdays had 2 tiny dots beside it. Thursdays, the line curved longer. Fridays, the smile sat closest to the fold. It was not random. It was a calendar. A language. The ticket with no smile was from the one morning I had been out sick with a fever and still called dispatch twice to make sure they covered my route. I remembered that day because Micah had spilled soup on the couch, then tried to clean it with dish soap and made the stain worse. I had been too tired to fuss. I just put a towel over it and slept sitting up. Julian had noticed I was gone. Every other ticket said, in his way, "I saw you." That missing smile said, "Where did you go?" I sat there looking at all those folded papers, and memories came one by one. The ice storm when I drove slow enough to make every parent late but got every child home. The morning I skipped breakfast because Micah needed lunch money for a field trip I forgot to sign. The week my shoulder hurt so bad, I steered with my left hand and used my right only for the door lever. The Christmas Eve route nobody wanted because half the roads were empty and the other half were slick. I had thought nobody saw any of it. Then a child who barely spoke had been keeping record with pencil marks on bus tickets. A knock hit the glass beside me. Celeste Vale stood outside. No sunglasses this time. When I opened the door, she looked at the tickets spread across the seat. "Did he ever talk to you?" she asked. "No, ma'am." Her eyes stayed on the paper. I picked up the one that said stay. He didn't have to. For a second, neither of us moved. Then Grant Barlow's voice came from behind her. "Mrs. Vale, we need to discuss changing the route permanently." The ticket bent in my fingers before I realized I was holding it too tight. Grant said permanently like he was moving a chair. Celeste turned toward him. "Why?" "Because attachment has become an issue," he said. "Julian's care team agrees consistency is important, but inappropriate dependency is not." I watched Celeste's face. She did not accept it right away. That gave me hope I did not want. Grant held a tablet against his chest. "Mr. Whitaker is a transportation employee. He is not part of Julian's therapeutic plan." There it was again. Transportation employee. I had been called worse. Still, my jaw set so hard I felt the pressure behind my ears. Celeste looked back at the tickets. "Did someone add that note to his route file?" Grant paused half a beat. That note was added for Julian's safety. That isn't what I asked." He did not answer. I should have spoken then. I should have told her about the ticket with stay, about the no-smile day, about the way Julian tapped his thumb twice when he heard my voice, but my old rule stood up inside me. Do the job. Be kind. Keep moving. So I gathered the tickets, put them in order, and handed them to Celeste. "These belong to him," I said. Her fingers closed around them like she was afraid they might fall apart. That night, Micah found me sitting in the kitchen with my root jacket still on. The apartment smelled like microwaved rice, and the lemon cleaner our neighbor swore would fix everything. The little wind chime by the window clicked against itself. One metal tube missing since last winter. Micah put his chipped model bus on the table. "Dad," he said, "what if somebody waits for you every morning?" I looked at him. He was not trying to be deep. He had glue on one thumb and cereal dust on his sleeve. He was just a 9-year-old boy trying to fix a plastic wheel with too much hope and not enough glue. "What do you mean?" I asked. He shrugged, like if they only feel okay when you show up. The room got very still. I thought about Julian standing on the curb, looking past tutors and guards and expensive cars for one old yellow bus. I thought about my own son watching me build walls and call them manners. The next morning, dispatch handed me a different route sheet. Route 22. I checked the page twice, though I already knew. "Where's 17?" I asked. Supervisor Bell looked uncomfortable enough to start organizing pens that were already organized. "Private request came in," he said, above my level. I walked out to the yard. My bus was parked in its usual place, but another driver had the keys. The air was cold enough to sting when I breathed in. My right hand reached for the door lever that was not there. Across town, Julian Vale would be waiting at 7:18. And for the first time in almost 2 years, I would not arrive. Later, Celeste told me what happened that morning. Julian stood at the curb at 7:12. His coat was buttoned wrong, one side higher than the other. Nobody fixed it, because he would not let anyone touch him once he was waiting. At 7:18, a yellow bus turned the corner. Not mine. Same color, same district number on the side, same black rubber around the windows. Different sound. Every bus has its own way of stopping. Mine sighed low, then clicked twice in the door hinge because the mechanics kept meaning to replace a worn pin. The substitute bus came in sharp, brakes biting too hard. Door folding open with a fast metal snap. Julian did not move. The new driver called his name. Nothing. Grant stepped forward. "Julian, this is your transportation now." Julian's eyes stayed on the road behind the bus. Celeste came out of the SUV. "Sweetheart," she said quietly. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out a folded ticket, and held it with both hands. No smile on it. Just blank paper. The school counselor tried. His tutor tried. Grant tried last, which made things worse. He took one step too close, and Julian backed into the gate so hard the iron bars tapped against his backpack. That was the part Celeste could not stop replaying. By 9 o'clock, Julian had not entered his classroom. By 10:30, he had not eaten. At 11:15, Celeste was in the security office watching camera footage from the past 2 years. Grant stood behind her, arms crossed. "This proves my concern," he said. "The attachment is excessive." Celeste did not answer. On the screen, my bus pulled up. Door opened. Julian looked up. Small smile. Same every morning. Next clip. Same thing. Next. Same thing again. Then the sick day. Different bus. No smile. Julian climbed aboard, but his hand stayed in his pocket the whole time. At school, He stepped down without leaving a ticket. Celeste leaned closer. Pause it. The technician froze the frame. Julian's hand was half open near the step. A folded ticket sat inside his palm. Grant cleared his throat. Mrs. Vale, routine disruption can create... Stop explaining my son like a report. The room went quiet. Grant's face tightened. My job is to reduce risk. And you decided Andre was risk. He was becoming emotionally significant. Celeste looked at him then. Grant finally said what he had been trying not to say. People like him get attached to families like yours. Then boundaries blur. Then expectations start. Celeste stared at him for a long second. No one in that room spoke. The technician rewound one more clip. My hand appeared in the mirror, taking a ticket from the step without looking back. Careful as if I had been handed glass. Celeste picked up her phone. When my supervisor called me at noon, I was parked outside a grocery store on Route 22, eating crackers for lunch. He said, Andre, they want you back at Vale Academy. I looked at the road ahead of me. Then I looked at the empty seat behind the door. Everybody had finally seen the tickets. Now they were waiting to see what I would do with them. I did not answer my supervisor right away. The grocery store parking lot sat half empty in the middle of the day. A woman in a red coat pushed a cart with one bad wheel. Somewhere behind the building, a delivery truck kept backing up, beeping at nobody who seemed to care. They're asking for you specifically, Supervisor Bell said. I looked at my hands on the steering wheel. The skin around my knuckles had gone dry from winter air and cheap soap. My right thumb still wanted the Route 17 door lever. Muscle memory does not care what paperwork says. Who's asking? I said. Mrs. Vale? Of course she was. People with power can move a man out of a child's life before breakfast, then call him back before lunch and expect the road to forgive them. I almost said no. Part of me wanted to. Not out of pride. Pride is louder than what I felt. This was smaller and uglier. I wanted somebody in that building to feel how easily a quiet man could disappear. Then Micah's voice came back to me from the kitchen table. What if somebody waits for you every morning? I closed my eyes. That boy had waited. Julian had waited through therapists, security guards, private tutors, and adults who kept turning his silence into paperwork. He had waited with folded tickets in his pocket and pencil marks nobody bothered to read. And I had seen enough to know. I just kept calling it boundaries because that sounded better than fear. Mr. Whitaker Bell said, I'm here. They said they'll adjust your pay for the disruption. Maybe issue an apology. I don't know. They just need you there. Pay, apology. Those words floated around the bus and did not land anywhere useful. I put the crackers back in the paper bag and folded the top twice. I'm not coming because she called, I said. Bell went quiet. I started the engine. I'm coming because a child expected me, and I taught my son that showing up still counts when nobody claps for it. There was a pause on the line. Then Bell said, softer. You want me to clear the route? No, I said. Route 22 still has children on it. So I finished my stops. Every one. I opened the door for Mrs. Patel's twins, waited while Kenny tied the same shoe 3 times, reminded a 6th grader that cologne was not a substitute for bathing. By the time I pulled back into the yard, the sun had shifted behind the maintenance shed. My regular bus was waiting. The driver who had taken it stood beside the door with the keys in his hand. He looked embarrassed, though none of this was his fault. I took the keys. Grant Barlow stood near a black SUV across the lot. He said, Mr. Whitaker, Mrs. Vale is prepared to compensate you for your cooperation. I looked past him at the bus. Kids don't remember who impressed them, I said. They remember who kept showing up. Then I climbed into the driver's seat and shut the door before he could answer. When I pulled up to Vale Academy, the whole front drive had gone still. Celeste stood near the gate with Julian beside her. Grant was there too, arms folded like he could hold them mourning together by force. The school counselor hovered near the steps. Supervisor Bell had driven over in his district sedan, tie crooked, one hand resting on the open door. I set the brake. The old bus sighed low, then the door hinge clicked twice. Julian lifted his head. He did not run. He did not speak. He just stepped forward once, then stopped with both hands around the folded ticket in his pocket. A man I did not know moved away from the school entrance and came toward my bus. Older white gentleman, gray beard, brown corduroy jacket, walking with the slow purpose of somebody who had spent his life around children and emergencies. The drive changed before he said a word. People made space without being asked. His left eye tightened first, then his mouth. He looked at me through the open door. "Andre," he said. Then he stopped. He swallowed, tried again. Driver number, Mr. Whitaker. I waited. He looked from me to Julian, then to the stack of folded tickets Celeste held against her coat. Every morning he asked. I gave one small nod. Celeste's hand opened. The tickets almost slipped, and the counselor caught them against her palm. Grant took half a step back. Supervisor Bell straightened without realizing it. The older man turned toward the others. "Root anchor," he said. Only 2 words? The counselor understood first. Her face changed like she had been reading the wrong file for a year. Bell looked down at his shoes. A teacher named Mrs. Henley covered her mouth, not dramatically, just enough to keep herself from making a sound. The security technician near the door frowned because he did not know what the words meant yet. Celeste was last. That was what broke me a little. She stared at Julian, then at the tickets, then at the bus door where her son had left those paper messages morning after morning. Her face did not crumple. It got smaller, like the truth had taken up space she used to stand in. The silence after that was not empty. It had diesel smell in it. Cold air. The soft tick of the bus cooling down. The sound of adults realizing a child had been speaking all along. Grant looked confused first, then calculating. This was never authorized as part of his plan, he said. The older man turned to him. No, it was missed by the plan. Celeste stepped forward. Not to me. To Julian. She crouched, careful not to touch him without permission, and held out the folded tickets. I'm sorry, she said. I thought quiet meant empty. Julian looked at the tickets. Then he looked at me. I reached into my jacket and pulled out the one he had written on hardest. Stay. I placed it on the first step of the bus. He smiled before he picked it up. I could have made trouble after that. There were names on forms that should not have been there. There were notes without signatures. There were people who had used the word safety when what they meant was distance. Celeste had lawyers who could have torn through the whole thing by dinner. She asked me what I wanted done. Grant stood near the SUV, pale around the mouth, waiting for the answer. I looked at him. Then I looked at Julian, sitting 3rd row on the right, holding the ticket that said stay. Fix the system, I said. Don't just punish the man who got caught using it wrong. That was all. Grant was removed from family security 2 weeks later. I heard he was reassigned somewhere with fewer children and more cameras. I did not ask. Celeste changed the school's transportation policy. Not with a press conference. No ribbon. No photograph of me shaking hands with anybody important. She brought in the older man from that day. doctor, Henson, and made every adult on Julian's care team learn what a child's routine could mean before they decided to break it. As for me, I kept driving. Same route. Same old seat. Same thermos with the lid that never screwed on straight. One afternoon, I stopped for gas after work. The pump ran slow, clicking pennies into dollars while a man 2 lanes over argued with somebody on speakerphone about barbecue sauce. I remember standing there in the cold, smelling diesel on my gloves, feeling tired in a way that did not scare me. At home, Micah had fixed the chipped model bus with a bottle cap for a back wheel. "It rolls crooked," he said. "Most good things do." He lined it up beside Route 17. The next morning, when I pulled up to Vale Academy, the air brakes sighed low and the hinge clicked twice. The vinyl seats held the night's cold. My coffee had gone bitter. Julian was already waiting. This time, he smiled before the door opened. He stepped up, placed a folded ticket on the first stair, and went to his seat. No word. No announcement. Just that. I kept that ticket in my wallet, behind my license, where nobody sees it unless I mean for them to. The pencil smile is fading now. Paper does that. Children grow. Roots change. Nobody knows whether Julian will ever become the kind of boy who fills a room with words. But every school morning, at 7:18, I still stop at that curb. And sometimes the strongest thing a man can do is arrive exactly where a child believed he would. If this story meant something to you, I hope you'll carry one simple reminder into your own life. People are not always waiting for grand gestures. They're often waiting for someone who simply keeps showing up. A kind word, a familiar face, a promise kept, or a few quiet moments of consistency can become the safest place in someone's world. We never truly know how deeply our everyday actions shape another person's life, especially a child who may not have the words to say thank you. If this story touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever had someone whose quiet presence changed your life? I'd love to read your story. And if you enjoy heartfelt stories about fathers, family, courage, and the quiet strength that often goes unnoticed, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and join us for the next journey.